And this is my presentation for the meal project. My name's Alex. I figured this would be a lot more entertaining for you and fun for me to do than a silly old presentation on a PowerPoint slide. So for my comparisons here, the home cooked meal versus the two outsource options. My first outsource option was O'Charley's for their chicken tenders meal, and then my other option was actually this place right here, the Whale's Tail. I found that the view here for the second option and the overall atmosphere was far superior to the home cooked meal or O'Charley's meal, and they were much faster, and that they got me in and the food on the table in less than 10 minutes. It was actually about 9.5 minutes altogether. And with the tip included, the overall cost of the meal was $11. And we walked from where we're staying, so I didn't have to use any gas to get there or back. O'Charley's, on the other hand, even though they're a tried and true favorite, their meal cost a lot more when I broke it down into analysis than I would have thought. Overall, from the time we left the house till we got the food on the table, that includes waiting to be seated, the cook time, etc., was just under 40 minutes. And with travel expenses included, according to the parameters set forth in the project, the overall cost came to, so the overall cost for O'Charley's came to $21.99. Yeah, my arm's my notepad. Laugh all you want, but it's not going to blow away. And then for the home cooked meal, which was, home cooked is good to be at home, be with family, whatever. But my overall time spent was 54 minutes. And as a college student that is full-time and also working full-time, my time's more valuable to me than, say, a couple extra dollars spent driving somewhere to get food if it's quicker. I guess the way I'm looking at it is I value the time more than the monetary aspect. So for me, outsourcing was a better option than insourcing. I considerably had more time on my hands by going out to eat than by going and buying the food and cooking it myself. Even with O'Charley's taking around 40 minutes for the whole traveling and eating, that is still nearly 20 minutes shorter than, say, getting the food and cooking it myself. I actually got lucky when I was buying my food in that I hit every green light, which is usually the exact opposite for my case. I'm almost every red light I'm stuck at. It's just my luck. And then you know how Walmart is, shopping there. Sure, it's low prices, but you usually end up waiting in line. You might not find what you're looking for. All these other variables. But I got lucky. Everything that I wanted was in stock. It was cheap, and I didn't have to wait in line. I hit all the green lights to and from. So my overall time spent there was a lot less than average. So I'm kind of taking that into consideration too. Had it been an average day, it probably would have been a little over an hour for the whole meal. The chicken and french fries, I did cook them at the same time. I didn't conduct them separately in the breakdown because they were cooking simultaneously in the same oven. The overall cost for the home cooked meal was $11.80, and that includes the driving expenses and the time spent for a wage, which is $10, and the report and for 54 minutes, which is 0.9 hours, it came to $9 an hour. So that was the biggest factor of my project there. Had that not been a factor, then the home cooked meal would have been considerably cheaper than the other options. But my time is valuable. I have very little of it. Usually the only other thing that I'm doing other than school or work is what you see me doing right now. But even then, I'm doing school as I'm doing this, so that's also something to be considered. I did learn quite a bit about insourcing versus outsourcing. The project was actually more of an eye-opener than I had anticipated. Of course, I've taken classes before and looked into analyzing these kind of things as far as the expenses go and the pros and cons of doing this or doing that. But I never actually analyzed something that I was doing myself. So for the O'Charley's meal to cost as much as it did, you know, I see $10.99 on the menu and I'm like, okay, that's not bad at all. But I've never actually factored in what it costs for me to get there and my time expense. And that's what really added up for me this time. And then same with the home cooked meals. You know, usually you're just used to reaching in the refrigerator, grabbing whatever it is you want, cooking it and calling it a day. But when I was analyzing it from a perspective of a strategic manager for outsourcing versus insourcing, it was actually quite a bit more time spent than I had anticipated. And considering the wage part of it was just as costly as going out to eat, even though I didn't actually spend any money on wages. So overall, I would have to say that outsourcing is the best option for me, at least for this meal, when it comes to my own personal benefit, especially if I chose the second option, which was the whale's tail. I saved nearly 35 to 40 minutes worth of time, and the cost was about half of what O'Charley's was, and it was 80 cents less than a home cooked meal. And that's because they're playing into the economies of scale. You know, they're buying their food considerably cheaper than I would have been able to buy it. And since their ovens and fryers are already preheated, I didn't have to waste any time waiting for that to happen either. The food was pretty much already ready. The table was already ready. I didn't have to clean up. The atmosphere and the overall experience of all three was pretty comparable. O'Charley's, of course, having their American classic decor. It's nice, but after a while, it's a dimly lit room with some jerseys on the wall, and you know, you see it everywhere. The whale's tail, on the other hand, was quite a bit nicer of a view. You know, sitting right next to the white sands overlooking the ocean. Nice Gulf Coast breeze, and it was right across the street. The home cooked meal, of course, I don't have to necessarily sit in my kitchen. I can go out and sit on the back porch, overlook the park. It's nice, but again, it's not as nice as what it could have been. And I'm a person that appreciates the simpler things, the natural parts of life. So if I can get a better view whenever possible, that is a huge factor for me in making these decisions. And again, I was so surprised at how much the overall cost was for O'Charley's when I actually broke it all down. I have been going there reliably for years on end, and now that I'm looking back on it, I'm wondering how much have I actually spent compared to cooking the meal at home or going somewhere else. It's crazy. Insourcing is a viable option for me, though. I do enjoy cooking food. It's got a personal pleasure to it, and I do like having complete control of my meal from start to finish. I can make it as crispy as I want, or I can overcook it just a little bit. I don't know why I would do that, but if I really wanted to, I could. So in other words, I have more quality control than I would if I went to a restaurant. Of course, at the restaurant I could always send it back, but then I'm going to be waiting even more, and then it's that awkward conversation with the waiter. Hey, this isn't right. I need it to be fixed. It's unavoidable sometimes, but it's not something that you want to do. Hopefully anyone else that did this project had as much fun with it as I did. Going out and eating my favorite meal 3 times. And then I'm definitely a business nerd, so being able to open Excel and compare each one of these things in a detailed fashion, it was incredibly fun. And it was, like I said, it was eye-opening. So this project overall, I would say, was a success. It was fun. It was eye-opening. I learned a lot. And I've studied insourcing and outsourcing before, but now that I've actually had to go through the process of doing it to make a decision, I learned quite a bit more about the process and how it works and what actually goes into that. You hear a lot about the political ramifications of outsourcing and how it's so unpopular, but no one really goes into the why, and what if an alternative was chosen, how much would that have costed the company, and how that affects the consumer, and how that affects the employee, and how it affects the bottom line and the overhead. And in relation to the overhead too, one of the key benefits to outsourcing that I noticed was the elimination of dealing with tax roll, the payroll, and how it affects the company's bottom line that way. Because I had never considered that option before when looking into outsourcing versus insourcing, was that when you co-contract with another company, they're responsible for the payroll taxes, the health insurance, and all that. So you're paying a flat price for them to do a job for you, and then you don't have to deal with all the other headaches in it. So that's, as a small business owner, that would be fantastic, especially if you're someone that hates doing the accounting part. You might be completely into the marketing and the consumer side of the business and absolutely love it. But then when it gets down to the nitty-gritty math, you absolutely hate it and you dread it, and it's the absolute most horrid part of running a business for you. So if you can pay, Joe Schmo contractor down the street, $50 a month to do your accounting, then you're for sure going to do it. And that was also something that I had never taken into consideration in outsourcing versus insourcing was, I knew the difference between offshoring and outsourcing, but for whatever reason, it never really clicked to me that paying someone else to do your bookkeeping was in fact outsourcing. I had always just chalked that up as normal part of business, and I've taken several accounting classes where we've gone through projects where we, would either start or work with a ongoing business and do their bookkeeping, and that whole time we were the company that was being outsourced to. So it's all kind of clicking, and it makes more sense now going through and analyzing it in this fashion, which, I don't know, it's pretty cool. I hope some of you guys had as much fun as I did with this project. I'm thinking about going back there again for lunch and probably dinner tonight. It was that good. Anyway, hope y'all have a good day.